So we all met back in 2021 at a PD with the MIT.
Mhm.
And Roxanne and I were already collaborating East Coast, West Coast, kindergartens, fourth grade. And we met Lillian at this remote PD during the pandemic and started a conversation offline. And that conversation has continued for 2 years and using Invention Lit as a jump off point for collaboration with music. So ladies,
Right.
tell us all about it.
Okay, I can get started.
Sure.
Um, yes, uh, 2021 workshop at that workshop um, happened to be at the end of our grant cycle. Our school was very fortunate to receive Lemison MIT Inventing Grant. So I was invited to share my inventing experience. I had a chance to attend the entire 2021 workshop. Your title, Conservation from Trash to Music Robots, in the elementary school section, attract my attention since I also built musical instrument using recycled material with my physics student. My thought was, if something works for elementary schooler, it will work for my students. So I went. Oh, it was fantastic. Your presentation really resonate with me. There are many new ideas were offered, such as Scamper and West meets East. You inspire me to make my lesson an inventive lesson with Scamper method. And invention, I also note invention, I need to have audience. So my thought was how perfect it would be if we were each other's audience. My student will be thrilled, I know, to connect with kindergarteners and fourth graders who are so eager to learn. They can be a catalyst to unlock curiosity, creativity, and bring the joy of learning to my students. So, so Rasen, on the same day, uh, on that presentation, Rasen sent me a want to connect email at the workshop. So I responded and proposed connecting my high school student with her kindergarteners when we both build instrument next school year, maybe May next school year. And what Rasen was the one follow up on that proposal in March. Rasen, you can go ahead, fill it in.
Yeah,
I knew you tracked me down with determinations.
it's funny. I'll never forget that day. I'm presenting with Jen, and
Mhm.
I'm looking at the screen, trying to have your head stop moving to see the sign behind you because you had a banner in the back with your high school name. So every time you'd move, I'm like, there's another letter to the high school that she works at. And it took me about 20 minutes on the internet to track your school, get your name, and then finally send that email. And all I kept thinking is, I don't want to hang up before I get connected to you, because I said, I know that Jen and I did not put our two classes face to face, but I think what my kids would probably love to have a face to face with high school students because they work with seventh and eighth graders sometimes in our school. And so this connection definitely was well worth it, Lillian, because having your kids come on the screen and be such great listeners to my 5-year-olds was extraordinary that first year. As you were talking about, you've done invention ed in your classes, but making the musical instruments with a different purpose to do presentations definitely changed for your class, my class as well, being able to explain what inspired them to make something and what materials they used and making
Mhm.
that connection to stories that we did.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Mhm.
do you want to share your feelings about our first year together?
Yeah. Usually my student will make a presentation just within the class to conclude a project. That was it. but presenting to kindergarteners in Massachusetts was such a novelty and thrill for my students. They shared the instrument with the PowerPoint of Scamper method, along with Thomas Edison's quotes. I can see the critical thinking, resilience were evident. And at the same time, we marvel at your students' creativity and the thought process of kindergarteners. The shared class really, I have to say, is magical. I never saw the level of excitement in my classroom. So we knew we have started something very special of the first year. Roxanne, what do you think?
As we began the presentation with the kindergartners eyeing the screen and looking at high school students, they were looking at their slides, and I realized we weren't going to be able to keep going just hearing their voices. So I asked Lillian and her students, turn off the screen. We want to just look at you. And they became animated, like they were doing a little play while they explained their instruments. And I think that was the joy of what brought this year even better, because we created more structure for the kids, and your kids did storytelling, which really was a great difference from last year's group when you had done presentations on the slides. Now, you did do slides. Well, your students still made presentations this year. But do you want to share what you did instead with the storytelling a little bit?
Yeah, well, I still add all this component to the project. I expect them to make a PowerPoint with a Scamper method and Thomas Edison quote. I still do the same thing, but this is one of the assignment for the project. And the second one is they need to make a video of a story. And this is where they actually make a video of their story, and they start to write, really exercise creativity, empathy to write and tell a story, riffing their instrument with sustainability, diversity, and more. I just really beyond my expectation. The students' creativity in writing was really way beyond my expectation. And then during the sharing, I want to point out Roxanne's comments, compliment, connection, 3 C's from your student was terrific. Immediately, my student picked that up and to give their 3 C's almost seamlessly. I'm really impressed. They start to comment on each student. So, and of course, this year I include a 3D biodegradable material to motivate my student to learn 3D printing. And we also tag the instrument with the QR code and link to the story. So all these we receive, we really appreciate your students' compliment and make our sharing even more exciting. And we feel so good about it. The kids feel so good about it. And what this experience for me and my student, it's really, we learn so much. We often at high school level, we lost ourselves in grades. We compare grades, this and that. So I said, oh, I need the 3 C's, comments, compliment, connection in my classroom. So I think this is what I gained this year. And I think the format of collaboration we have could not be better to introduce invention education. Some of my students even make this being elementary education is their career. They are the last year student and they got into college. They actually go major in elementary education in college. How about that?
Oh,
Like
if
say
we're
you
doing
inspire.
that, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Lillian, I loved also when you mentioned that the stories had their basis in different cultures. Like some kids were saying, oh, this story is based on a story from my culture in Puerto Rico, or and that was fascinating also.
Yeah, they found, and also the the rainbow xylophone, and it's all very inclusive. They have on their slide, they have all different kind of people, different color, and that represent their theme. Just include everyone in this. So I think that's also diversity inclusive as well.
I agree.
And I think for like my children, the connection with your kids was terrific. Making connections and giving those compliments to your kids or asking questions about their instruments. But this Invent Lit really has made kids more aware of finding the empathy in a story, finding out the characters, how they feel, and how they feel like music. How does music make us feel? I mean, when we go to an assembly, if there's music in the cafeteria, we walk in going, walking in, but it's just no music. It's like we just walk in and have to sit down. It totally changes it. And this music lesson has really opened my kids' eyes. I almost think we should do it earlier in the year so we could keep doing different music things.
Yes.
Jen, you were talking earlier today about Invent Lit, like what it brings to kids. And it really has made me realize that it helps kids find solutions to problems, everyday life problems. I worked a lot on growth mindset since September, and kids understanding what the difference is between fixed and growth mindset and how we have to persevere and push on. And Invent Lit really does help them identify and feel the emotions of the characters in the story, but a greater appreciation of people's needs and how they feel when they are successful in inventing something. And that I might not be able to do it, but I saw Wiley do it this way. That high school student did it this way, Mrs. Scream. I saw him in the video. That's what opened my eyes. Like, they're looking up to your students. They've only known them for a week and they're already looking up to them. And then when they came on and started talking to them, they were just like staring at that screen.
I also think it's fascinating that each person finds a different problem from the same story, from the same instrument. I loved the comments about, wow, look at all the different drums that you made. And so looking at solutions being different, but also looking at problem seeking being an independent personal experience. And I love that we find that not only in our kindergartners when they have opportunities to look at stories, but we also are finding that in our high school students, and then sharing those experiences, I think really is the power of this program that you both have begun. So thank you so much.
And we'll continue.
We'll continue.
Fantastic.
Yes. Yeah, you talk about the question. I have a couple students' reflection here. He said, I was so impressed by the interesting question they asked us. So they really appreciate the question. And one student even said, I was so shocked to know how creative kindergartners were. They were so shocked.
As educators, I think we learn from those questions. A kindergartner can have a question that we can't answer. And we can't give them an off-the-cuff answer. We have to go do the research and show them where to find their own answers as well. So beautiful that your high schoolers are noticing the power of questions.
Yeah, and also they said, I like work with the kids. It's important to show younger kids that it is okay to explore their ideas, showing that's important to recycle, reuse material. Another student wrote, it's important to teach young students that it is okay to be creative, to share and express their ideas.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
It's so wonderful that you went beyond and looked for survey information of how your students interpreted their experience.
Mhm.
Thank you both, ladies. You're
Oh,
changing the
welcome.
world one child at a time.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you, Jen.
finally, Roxanne, when
Yes.
he said, I wish we can do this again.
My class actually wants to do it again next year with the same kids. I said, but you're not going to have Mrs. Screama.
Oh, yes.
They're just realizing that now.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, ladies.
You're
I'm gonna
welcome.
stop recording now.